To whom much is given, much is required. Part of that requirement is sharing. Culture is the heartbeat within our lives, and it's at the core of so many things. While we live in a time when we are starving for wisdom, I welcome you to your wisdom retreat at Culture Raises Us. So today's guest literally happens to be a very, very long-time friend and co-conspirator, I can say, on a couple of projects. John Monopoly is literally one of Chi-Town's finest and is most known for being Kanye's manager for many years. And most recently now, the head of partnerships at Viola in the cannabis space. Super, super excited to have you here today, bro. And before I let you kind of tell a little bit more about your story, I would love to get your thoughts on what we call our signature question. And when you hear culture, what does that mean to you?
My immediate response is music, art, fashion, anything that touches your soul and speaks to your spirit, but not limited to those three. Those are just the three things that immediately come from me. But I think it could be a number of things. Anything that really touches or moves you is culture.
I love that. I love that. So again, I gave a very, very high level intro on you, but I'd love for you to now share a little bit more about yourself before we kind of get into the fun weeds of this conversation.
Okay. Well, my name is John Monopoly. I'm from the South Side of Chicago. I started on this path in the entertainment industry when I was 13 years old as a promoter. I did my first party in June of '89 and started throwing, concerts pretty quickly after that. When I was like 15 or 16 years old. Around the same time that I started doing the shows in Chicago, I met Kanye and we became very close, and I started working with him as a manager / I guess I was his first manager, and we started a production company together called the Numbskulls. And that was in like 90, 91, and I went on to intern for Def Jam in high school, had a couple other internships at another label in Chicago called Grassroots, and worked at Violator Records and Jive Records, and was a mentor by Chris Lighty and Mona Scott and Todd Moskowitz. Went on to manage Busta Rhymes for a while and Missy Elliott for a while, and Mobb Deep for a little while. Worked very closely with Virgil Abloh. I met him when he was interning for my big brother, Jay Boogie, who gave me my first real job in the business. And Virgil came and kind of interned for me for a while before I introduced him to Kanye. Also very close to Don C, who's like my partner in crime. We started our company Hustle in 1998 together, and now he's gone on to do amazing things as the creative director of the Bulls and creative director at Mitchell and Ness, and he has his store RSVP. You see me repping, of course.
That's right.
This is his brand with Virgil Abloh. They have that together. Rest in peace, my brother Virgil. Don also just opened up another store in Chicago in the West Loop called Just Don for his own brand that is doing really well, and set out 170 North Sangamon in the West Loop. So I've been around for almost 30 years, a little over 30 years actually, as an independent promoter and nightlife guy, and then got in the business shortly after.
Also, I think a main component, as I kind of alluded to earlier, of the rise of the Chicago imprint on culture. And I personally want to applaud you for those contributions, and I look forward to seeing what you're going to do in your next chapter in this cannabis space and beyond. But as you were even talking about, your early days in the industry and all the people you've worked with, obviously music culture plays a significant role in shaping culture as we know it. And with all these different artists and these brands and these companies that you've worked with over the years, I'd love to get from you, when was the particular moment where you realized just how big and instrumental this music culture was to overall cultural life? I call it the intersection moment. Like, when was that aha moment
Sure,
for you? Where
sure.
like, yo, this is way bigger.
There was uh there was a moment early on in Kanye's career. We did his first endorsement deal with a cellular provider named Boost Mobile.
Boost
I'm
Mobile.
sure everybody knows about Boost Mobile. Shout out to Lisa Spiritus. That was our first big endorsement check. And I saw from how we were interacting with the client, our partner, and saw the kind of money they were spending, not only just with us, because we got a good deal, how much they were spending on the campaign, right? And I saw that the stuff that we started doing many years before on the south side of Chicago, now it had global impact, and it had the
Mhm.
power to fuel economy and business and commerce.
This is when you recognize the significance of the Chicago influence on greater global
For
culture.
sure.
So, so with that, I would ask, how did growing up in Chicago kind of influence your approach to branding and marketing in this space? Because obviously you've done a ton of that from the promotion days,
Mhm.
ton of that from the artist standpoint. And I'd love to also see, who were some of the people, early on who played a positive role in assisting you with having this
All right, we're
impact.
gonna start with the people first. One of the first
Yeah.
people was Shorty Capone, who's an OG music guy, OG from Chicago West Side. He discovered Crucial Conflict, and he discovered um, Lupe Fiasco. Lupe
Okay.
was in a group called Wolfpack, and he had the Wolfpack. And that was like one of the first like real OGs that I looked up to in the city that were making real money and doing their thing in the music business, because there was only a few. Then there was a guy named Adam Stevenson. He had the first hip hop club in the city. Before then, to go to a club to hear hip hop, you have to go on an off night, meaning a Monday or a Sunday or a Tuesday. But at his club, he was doing Friday, Saturday, Sunday hip hop every night. It was the first time that
Mm.
happened in the city. And he's a dear friend of mine to this day. Mark Bortz, who was like the club king back in the late 90s, early 2000s. He had like, I want to say, 8 properties in a small little area called the North End Entertainment District, where all the clubs and bars were, right where Dragon Room was, where you used to come. You used to come to one of his spots. You just never met this guy.
Right.
His name was Mark Bortz, and he's a guy that I definitely appreciate, that I still look up to this day. Um, Jay Boogie, Jay Boogie, Triple
Hmm.
OG. He discovered Little Dirk. He helped to discover Polo G, Young Chop. He had Jay Boogie Leathers. He was doing all the clothes for Jermaine Dupri and the Brad and Puff Daddy. This is in the 90s. I'm talking about he had it. He's like super, he was like a superhero to us on the South Side.
Right.
Um,
Right.
your man Kenny Burns knows him well. You can ask Kenny Burns some Jay Boogie stories for sure.
I'm
So
sure.
yeah, those are the
So
four
then,
people.
and then how did the Chicago influence
You
piece,
said what?
the Chicago influence piece approach to your
Oh, got
branding
it.
and your
Well, see,
marketing?
for us, man, this is before social media, so we couldn't really get, like, if I wanted to hear what Funk Flex was playing that Sunday night on Hot 97, it wasn't really a way for me to do it unless I was going to New York and listening to it on
That's
the
right. Coming to
radio.
the tunnel.
You know what I mean?
Right. Or listen to the
So
radio. Right.
we were doing a lot of travel. You know what I mean? We would go any chance we would get. We was always going to New York and LA, trying to absorb the energy of what they were doing on the coast to bring it back to the city. So we were very influenced specifically by New York, more than LA, because we were just on the East Coast thing. We were really into Bad Boy and Rockefeller. When we started Hustle, it was really just on some, like, if you notice, I'll show you my Hustle t-shirt. It says "It's almost over" on the back. It was Hustle, period. And the whole thing was, you got to hustle because it's almost over. There's not enough time. If you want to win the race, you got to go faster. We got to go harder.
Mhm.
So our whole thing was, we had Kanye, we believed in him. This was our first act. Go Getters was our first act. We knew that they were special. And shout out to GLC, because GLC got a hit record right now. It's like literally bubbling on the charts. He got a real record. I'm so happy for him. But
Nice.
Go Getters with Ye, we knew that it was something special there. So we were just by any means necessary. You know what I mean? Like, it just didn't
Mhm.
Mike Love, who was on WGCI, which is the big iHeart station in Chicago, he'll tell stories about how Kanye wasn't on the playlist. The Go Getters weren't on the playlist, so technically they couldn't play the record, but they play the intro of the record on the way to radio break, just to show love, showing that these guys are working hard enough. They need to be recognized. And there was little
Mm.
stuff like that
Love
that we
this.
were doing that we remember, because we were pushing the envelope. We were going so hard. I had street teams outside of WGCI with picket signs saying, play the Go Getters, play the Go Getters. You know what I'm saying? That was Kanye's group back then, the Go Getters. We had like a real campaign going, and we were just by any means necessary all the time. And I think it really made an impact on how we were received by the public, especially in our hometown, you know.
Yeah, no, and it again, it's the literal and figurative element of the hustle mentality that you've exuded. I mean, ever since I've known you,
Thank you.
and I literally would always remember coming to Chicago, and as you said, between you, Happy, and Don C, y'all would be the consummate
That's
hosts, and have
that's the
every
family right there. Me, Happy, and Don. That's the triad.
no, no, listen, and everything was on lock, and I always valued the relationship that y'all had as a
Yeah,
unit. And I also love how you all spread your respective wings while still, though, remaining true to your core. And I think there's a quality there that many can benefit from, to be honest. So I would love to ask, what's the seed that you kind of water to fly your own wings in your own way, right? While staying connected to the core and still lifting each other up. I mean, even look at you coming on today with the
yeah.
RSVP shirt, right? It's still a love and
See,
support.
that's where it started, though. See, you have to maintain some level of balance. I can't get so caught up in what I'm doing that I never look to him or look to Hap, or it has to be that, or it was all for nothing. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? It has to. You know, and even me and Happy, we fight like brothers all the time. You know what I mean? But it's only out of love. We both want the best
Mm-hmm.
for each other, and those are my real brothers. Happy and Don are my real. Don is my cousin. You know what I mean?
How
But
about that?
Happy and Don are my real brothers, and we built this from the ground up. You know what I mean? And it feels good to see everybody thriving. You know what I mean? Don is doing incredible. Happy's doing his thing. Everybody's doing well. You know what I mean? So, um, yeah, I mean, and the seed, I've tried to always extend myself to who I believe are the next generation, right? And I think that's kind of how I guess you'd say, plant my seeds, by trying to just make myself available for whatever. I do a lot of um, untraditional mentoring. You know what I mean? Where people will call out to me. I did a call today with a young brother, my man Austin. And he's out. He's asking questions about this and that. How do we maneuver in different situations? And I always try to extend myself, because for me to get on, I had to move out of Chicago and go to New York. And when I said to myself, when I got my shit right and I got on, I wanted to be one of the people that was like, you could reach out to, so you didn't have to move to New York like I did, or move to LA like I did. So you could
That's right.
stay in Chicago and build your foundation from home, you know? Um, so yeah, I just try to make myself available, and that's really how I leave my seeds.
Well, and that availability seed is a major superpower, because I don't think enough of us exude that or plant that seed. And I think the availability that you can offer somebody can be the trajectory that changes the world somewhere with
Yeah,
someone. So I do want to applaud you for being so open to that, and hopefully sharing that with others to also then embody this notion of availability, because there's so much power in
yeah,
that. And it's not having to solve all the problems, but it's definitely helping with others who might have the ability to solve
that's
the
right.
problems. But just your availability to help them get to that spot is
Yeah, you gotta
huge.
lend that ear. You gotta give. You have to give up yourself. You have to be. I really believe that to get, you have to give. You know, it's no other way. It don't work no other way.
That's right. That's right. So, we're also in the midst of, I can't believe this, celebrating 50 years of
Oh
hip
man,
hop, which sounds crazy, to be honest, right?
absolutely.
And there's been so many components, I think, that have made it what it is to date. And I look at the influence of Chicago, and I look at its music pedigree playing a significant role within that. In your opinion, what are the two biggest contributions you feel Chicago has contributed to the legacy of 50 years worth of hip hop? Not only, but just the two
Yeah,
biggest that come to
I'm
your
gonna say
mind.
these two names, and then I'm gonna explain why. Common and Kanye, and let me explain why. Let me just explain
Mm,
why. Common is Chicago's Nas, Chicago's lyrical legend. He's probably, and you know, people gonna say what they're gonna say, but he's probably the best rapper from Chicago. Period. That's
say
and
it,
that's
B.
just
Say it. Put
that's
it
just
out
what
there.
it is. I did Common's first Wisconsin show, February 13th, 1993, 30 years ago. He was cold back then, and he's still that guy now. That's just what it
Cold
is.
now.
Kanye is our Jay-Z. Nobody has been ever come able to
Mm,
be as big as him, have such global impact as him, and sell product like him, and to be so polarizing. Good or bad,
facts.
whatever you want to say about him,
Facts.
it just is what it is. He's that guy. So you really can't get any better than Common, and you can't get any bigger than Kanye.
I love that. And that's spot on. And I hear you. And when you talk about the impact of both, it's great to see that it still
Yeah,
stands today.
absolutely. Absolutely. I don't think you could really score that card any other way. I don't think.
Mm. So now, at this stage of all that you've done in this career, what enticed you to make the cannabis move full time?
Well, I have partaken. I'm a big lover of cannabis myself and have been for many years. Um,
Nice.
it helps me with a personal health issue that I have. I'm bipolar, and it helps me kind of manage
Right.
myself and keep me on an even keel. And it always has been there for me. I try not to abuse it, but I do use it,
Right.
and it helps with some pain management. And I'm a businessman, and I've always admired um, the co-founder of the company, Dan Pettigrew. He's always been a successful guy from where I'm from in Chicago, and Al Harrington actually used to come to my parties in Chicago when I think he played for Indiana. I think.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
was about to say Indiana,
I
probably.
think
Yeah.
he was playing for Indiana. And he would come to, I believe, the biology bar. I'm not sure, but I was always cool with Al and always had much love and respect for Dan. So when the opportunity presented itself, I just jumped on it, and it's been great. You know, we got a great team. Sharif Williams, our CMO. I've known Sharif since he was maybe 13 years old.
Sharif is
Come on,
great. Love Sharif.
how do you get
Love
any better than
Sharif.
Sharif? You know. Um,
That's right.
Yeah,
Genuinely good
sharp,
person,
all
smart.
that.
Go ahead.
He's prepared, knows what to do. He's a great exec, great guy all the way around. And then Al, super sharp. Dan is amazing. Lori, the whole crew. So I'm excited to be down with the operation. We got. Did I say we have 2 stores in St. Louis that just opened? We got
No,
two
spread the
stores in
word.
St.
Spread the
Louis that
word.
just opened. We did our grand opening on 420 with G Herbo. It was a great event at
Mm-hmm.
the pageant. Then we have one store in Broadview, Illinois, which is a west suburb of Chicago. It's right outside of Chicago downtown, right 8 minutes away from Oak Park. We have one, that store opens in like 30 to 45 days. And then we have another store in the Lincoln Park area on Webster that's going to be opening within the next 9 months. So that's two in Chicago that'll be open this year. And then we have Hoboken, New Jersey coming up next. And we got some cool stuff. I'm excited. Viola's here.
No, it's beautiful to hear the growth in this space. And again, I want to applaud you on your transparency of, alluding to some of the personal hurdles that you've gone through, right, with the bipolar nature, and how this has
Yeah,
helped you with
absolutely.
that, right? Significantly, which then leads to, and it's kind of evident, there's so many narratives around cannabis, right? And I think you have an opportunity to help change some of these stigmas and
Hmm.
stereotypes around it. And you as an individual are actually an amazing example. What are some of those stereotypes and stigmas that you're like, you know what? This is the new narrative that we're going to shape around
I
cannabis
remember when
moving
I was
forward.
young, smoking, the elders would be like, what are you, a dope fiend? You smoking them reefers? You know what I mean?
The
Yeah,
reefers. That's right.
reefers.
Remember reefers?
But that's an old way of thinking. You know what I mean? This really
Yeah.
is, when used properly, this really is medicine. You know what I mean? So the
Mm,
stigma that this is makes you some kind of a, you know, strung out bum, or just that's over.
done.
Now I can do this and say, hey,
Yeah.
this actually helps me. This is how I use it. And this actually has a positive impact on my day-to-day life. You know what I mean? So I think that's like the
Mm.
main thing is that, you're like a drug addict or dope fiend if you smoke weed, if you use marijuana.
Yeah, and again, I can't say this enough. You're actually a beautiful example of what comes from it, right? Because by you being the best version of yourself, you're contributing and pouring into society and culture in an impactful way. So again, I'm
Thank
applauding you
thank you, bro.
for that. No, no. So now talk about the role that Black artists, entertainers, and consumers, have had in the advancement and the what I call mainstream popularity of the
That's
cannabis
funny that you
across the
say that.
world.
So I remember when I first started traveling with artists internationally, there was always this like underground brotherhood of like where you could buy weed, where you could smoke weed, and like what's cool and what's not cool, right? So I remember going to London and like, the weed guy in London for us, I don't want to say who we were with, it was the same guy for all the other rappers, right? And like it was a part of like a social movement as well, because it wasn't just buying weed. It was like you would connect to the weed man if you needed a barber or this or that. Like it was like a cultural thing.
So do you think that Black entertainers are actually doing enough to promote the business
I don't think
side
so. I,
of
I think we're
cannabis?
not,
You
because
know,
we're not involved enough in a real way. I think we only represent like 2 or 3% of the overall business of cannabis are people of color.
right.
Um, So I think what we need is more real partnerships and a more of a stake in the game. I want more people to come work with us and even our counterparts. It's not all about us winning. It's enough out there for us to, for even our, competitors to eat. What I'm saying, to a certain degree. You know what I mean? I
That's
think
right.
I think that we should, try to take care of our people, and make sure that the people that would be like the ambassadors promoting it actually get a real stake and not just a check.
So maybe that's the mindset shift. We've
So
been
we've
so
been so programmed
programmed
just to get the check
over
and
the
run.
years.
You know what I'm saying? But that's not what it's about. It's
Boom.
about equity.
Thank
It's
you.
about real
What
ownership so we can hand it down to our kids.
Yeah. And that's what I needed you to drop the gem on, because that's the shift and evolution of how we shape this next
That's
generation
right.
of culture moving forward, right? It's the equity piece that comes along with the check that we initially were striving for. Like, we were cool with being in the room, and now it's not about
But
being cool with being in the room anymore. Like, the seats are at the table are what we are deserving of and should have from a long-term equity
that's right.
standpoint, for sure, generationally. So when you think of cannabis, though, from a user and business standpoint, who are the three artists that come
Wiz
to your mind?
Khalifa, Snoop Dogg, and I want to say Willie Nelson, but then I also want to say Currency. I'm gonna say Currency.
And give me the whys on all three.
Wiz because he has an amazing new record with my man GLC from Chicago, and it's called Kush and P. He has like Kush is in the name of the song. You know what I mean? He's all about it. You know,
Right.
Snoop because it's Snoop Dogg. I mean, that's just what it is.
It's Snoop.
Currency because he's that dope underground champion that's a super stoner. He's not a star, but he's like an underground legend. Yep. Very
Yeah,
well
and well
respected.
respected.
Very well
Super well
respected.
respected.
But he said, you know, the only difference between me and other artists is that we all go to Walmart with no security, except I go with a Rolls Royce. I go in a Rolls Royce, and that's what he said in an interview. I'm like, absolutely. Like, you're getting real money, but you're still underground. People really don't really know. You know, that's dope, though. That's a dope lane. A great way to move.
That's a great way to
Come
move.
on, man.
That's a great way to move.
That's why I love that dude.
Great way to move. Yeah, so in the spirit of this hustle mentality and mantra, what would you tell the next generation of hustlers to kind of keep in mind as they look to establish their own brands? And what mistakes would you kind of tell them to try to avoid?
Work hard, be honest, stay consistent, and repeat.
Mm. Repeat over and over and over again. Yo, are you inspired by others outside of your industry?
Absolutely. I'm
Is there anybody
inspired
that you
by Puff Daddy, Jay-Z,
Okay.
Jermaine Dupri, Pharrell, Kanye. Definitely a lot of people. Mona and Ty from Violator, Ty
Yeah.
Moskowitz, Mona Scott.
You know, throughout all this, you know, again, you've done so much, and as you talk about even all these influences that play a big role in who you are and inspiring you, do you feel like you're locked into your why and your purpose?
I don't know if I'm all the way there. I think I'm getting close. I think for the first time, I have an actual cannabis brand called John Monopoly Presents Bipolar. And every time I say something about me that kind of like, well, I'm like, yeah, I'm bipolar, or my brand bipolar, I feel something telling me, speaking to me kind of like through my spirit, like helping people with mental health is something that you should do.
And I think the beauty of it, and we said this earlier, is that you're an example. And why I say example in such a way, it's so easy to talk about something or get behind something and promote it. But if you haven't lived it, there's a level of a lack of authenticity. And you are a walking example. I started this conversation by saying, I've seen you through the ups and downs of this, and as you've dealt with and moved through it, and the beauty of where you are now and where you've been. But it was a journey. A lot of people don't see the in-between and the context. And we all have our respective in-between journeys. I'm sharing that with you as you talk about getting closer to your purpose and the bipolar branding and all these different things, that your story is your brand plan, your authentic brand plan that's going to that's going to resonate with people because you are an example. You've lived it and walked in it. So I just wanted to share that with you as you go through this process and this journey of figuring out your why. Know that this is very powerful, what you're sitting on. And it's going to be very powerful, more importantly, of who you can touch and help
That's real.
with this, for sure. So in the scope of, that, your purpose and your why, we always end these with, what are the 3 seeds that you'd want to leave with the stewards of culture moving forward?
The 3 actual seeds, like action plans, or just
Yeah, we look at seeds as we look at, how cultures developed, where people did something, created something, and they planted the seed and they watered it and became way bigger
Okay.
than what they ever could have imagined. If there were 3 things that you can share, 3 things you can share with anyone listening who are going to be responsible for helping to
Okay.
shape some form of culture moving forward, what would those 3 seeds or principles or
Plan
values
with
be for you?
intent. Act as if it's your last day. Achieve by any means necessary.
These feel very hustle-like.
Very, right?
And spot on and so genuine. Look, I'm grateful,
Man, me too,
first
man.
off, that we were able to do this. You are somebody who I valued. I value over the years tremendously. You welcomed me into Chicago as family. You have always treated me as such since. And I hope that I return that favor in some way, or I show that in our dealings, and in the way I think and
Nah, that's
speak
good.
about you when you were not in rooms. I love you as a person,
Man, appreciate you,
and
man.
truly
Appreciate those kind
appreciate you,
words,
bro.
my brother. Whatever I could do, you're my man. We go back to the 90s, man.
That's right. That's right. I
Yep.
mean, literally, the seating program with y'all
Yep.
was hilarious. That all y'all were in. You, Happy, Don C, Yay,
The whole crew. The
Woody.
whole
I mean, it
crew.
was the whole
That's so
crew,
funny. So funny.
the whole crew, and it was amazing.
No problem.
So look, I want to thank you.
I'm so
I
happy
appreciate
to
you,
be here and
and this
take
was great.
time with you, man. For real, whatever you need, I'm here.
We truly appreciate your support because it helps us fulfill our mission of promoting cultural awareness and personal development. Please click the subscribe button below to help ensure and solidify our mission.